Om Ishwaraha Paramaha Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. I place my prostrations at the feet of causeless cause of all and the rootless root of all. I render my prostrations at the feet of all the liberated masters. And I place my salutations to the divinity which is inherent and innate in all of us. Thank you so much. At the outset, I like to thank the Meditation and Study Circle directors, Mr. Vasudev and Srimati Vani Vasudev, for giving me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts related to the topic, Life is a Journey Back Home. At the same time, I remember my mentors, Mr. S. Krishnamurthy and Srimati Rukmini Krishnamurthy, who were instrumental in introducing me to this particular platform and also encouraged me in the lecturing profession. So for the last 2 decades, I have been associated and I can say affiliated to this meditation and study circle, which has grown in leaps and bounds and has served the community at large. And I'm very thankful to the audience always, basically because I find myself very, very comfortable with the elite audience and highly enlightened audience whom I usually meet in this particular platform. And at the same time, I like to pray a smooth sail to the soul of Dr. Shirdi Prasad Thakur, who used to speak from the same platform, and he has departed us, and we really miss him very much. And I wish my heartfelt condolences to the family. Let God bless them with enough courage and enough sustenance to bear this particular loss. With this, I like to begin my lecture. The topic, as it's already announced, life is a journey back home. And I reiterate saying that life is nothing but a journey back home. It's a topic which is really intriguing. But before entering to the topic, I just like to say something about the prevailing situation in the world. I hesitate and also dread to teach or preach my students saying be positive. Be positive was the phrase which was used so often by me, especially to the students and my audience. Earlier to this pandemic, it used to sound good. And it always used to boost my students and my audience. Now the whole connotation has changed. We can't use this phrase as we used earlier because the pandemic has taken over the entire globe, and we are passing through unprecedented times. Perhaps our generations did not see this kind of epidemics and pandemics. Probably our earlier generations witnessed some epidemics and few pandemics. But the kind of pandemic that the world is witnessing right now is really unprecedented in the history of medical science. We are passing through a global health emergency and crisis. Many precious lives are lost. People are locked in their homes. People who used to live hand-to-mouth existence are having a tough time to survive. There is impending huge economic loss, unprecedented pressure on healthcare system, family lives are getting broken, and human relationships have gone for a toss, and we have really reached such a deplorable stage where offering respectful and peaceful last rites to departed souls is increasingly becoming difficult. We must begin by asking why we are having so many problems when we are otherwise considered so intelligent. Man is an intelligent being. His intelligence has no bounds at all. He has achieved a lot, isn't it? We have been able to go to the moon, perform fantastic surgeries. We have made enormous developments in medicine, communication, transportation, media, so on and so forth. But we consider those achievements are the results of human intelligence. Yet that intelligence does not seem to solve the present human problems. Problems are increasing incessantly. There's absolutely no end to the problems. Plug one hole and you have another 10 holes which get opened up. In the process of solving one problem, we create multiple other problems. Why? What is the reason? Why world is actually witnessing such a horrendous situation? According to Professor Krishna, external methods of solving problems is just like tinkering work. It does not provide freedom from problems. Our approach to any problem is solve the problem externally. But most of the problems stem from inside. They are basically internal problems, and many of them are related to our psyche. Unless and until the root cause is addressed, the problems are never going to be solved once for all. It is like tinkering work. We tinker wherever the paint has gone on a wall. It's just a temporary fix-up, that's all. But in due course, it's definitely going to distort. This kind of tinkering work does not provide total freedom from problems. What we urgently need is internal approach, an internal method, an inner change, an inner transformation, probably a mutation in the way we think, in the way we feel, in the way we act, and in the way we live. So what I mean to say here is a total transformation. Unless the transformation is total, complete, comprehensive, probably this kind of problems are going to repeat even in future. Only when we adopt an internal approach to solve a problem, we can expect a turnaround. For this to happen, what is needed is a fundamental change in our consciousness. This is what we call transformation of consciousness. Albert Einstein always used to stress upon a quote that he was very fond of. What he used to say is, problems that arise from a particular consciousness, or the problems that do originate from a particular level of human consciousness, can never be solved by staying at the same level of consciousness. We need to raise the consciousness to higher level. Only then the problems which arise from lower level consciousness would be solved. Raising consciousness to next level is the urgent requirement. It is the need of the hour. The deliberation today is on a topic called Life is a Journey Back Home. This topic and the content of this topic would certainly be helpful in providing the required insights for raising our consciousness to the next level. I wish collectively, if all of us work together, perhaps we can raise our consciousness. When consciousness of each and every person in this world begin raising, the consciousness of the whole planet raises. We say planetary consciousness. Just like how each one of us have consciousness, even planet has a consciousness of its own. For reasons best known to us, our consciousness has been greatly constrained and constricted. When every person's consciousness is constrained and constricted, the collective consciousness of humanity is also constrained and constricted, and it will have a serious repercussion on the planetary consciousness. Even the planetary consciousness is vibrating at a lower level now. So we have individual responsibility to raise the consciousness. Okay, having said this, let's just try to contemplate on the topic that I have picked. It's titled as Life is a Journey Back Home. Which is our home? Is it the palatial bungalows or buildings that we have constructed and the physical entities in which we are living? Is it the physical house in which I am living? Yes, the physical house in which I am living is certainly home, provided I have created a homely environment in my house. A house is different from a home. A house can be constructed with all your raw materials, with the help of your masons and engineers. But home cannot be constructed with those raw materials. Home is made by the way you live and the kind of relationships that you share with your family members. Yes, certainly. Many of us are not only living in the house, but also a home. But is it the home that I am talking about? No. It is not the true home in the true sense. Our real home is that which we reach and which we attain only when we get into our real nature. The place where our real nature dwells is called as the home. where exactly the real nature of a man dwells? The answer is when we enter into deep meditation. What do we experience under intense meditative state? Because meditative state is the true or the real state of us. Where do we reside when we get into meditative state? We all know very well, intense meditation, deep meditation will lead us to ananda or bliss. That is our true state. That is our real nature. That is our eternal home. That is our resting place. But unfortunately, we rarely experience ananda in the middle of a busy life as we are caught in the daily grind of life. Perhaps the pandemic has given a rest to us to some extent. We are spending time at home, but again we are busy. As long as we are busy and we are in this world caught with the worldly activities, where is ananda? Where is bliss? Unless until we make a way to get inside, dwell inside, stay inside, it is impossible. That's why the masters say, your ways are different from our ways. Masters or Mahatmas say, your ways are different from our ways. Basically because we are worldly beings. We forget ourselves in the worldly activities. You ask anybody, anyone, what are they searching for in this life? Place few probing questions to them. Try to gently prod them to answer. Invariably, most of the people say that they are seeking happiness. The happiness that they are seeking or looking for is nothing but expression of ananda at a lower level. What is happiness at lower mental level is probably ananda at atmic level. At atmic level. So, ananda expresses as happiness in the lower worlds. And that happiness is the one which we are always seeking. Basically because we are stuck in these lower planes. We have not realized what is ananda. When happiness itself is a mirage for all of us, a distant dream for most of us, and we know the word happiness, but we don't know the feeling of happiness, and we are unable to perceive the true happiness which is available to us in this lower plane, where comes the question of ananda? Unless until our consciousness expands, this is what I was talking about in the beginning. Unless the consciousness completely transforms and raises to next higher levels, it is probably impossible for us to look for solutions, because the problems that we have created are the problems from worldly consciousness. The worldly consciousness has created these dreadful problems in the planet. If these problems are supposed to be solved, we need to raise our consciousness to the higher plane, that is divine plane, non-worldly plane, metaphysical plane. You can call it any way, whatever the way you want to call. If happiness is so difficult, probably Ananda is at a remote distance for us. If that is the case, understand how difficult it is to go back to such a home. It is our home basically because we originated from Ananda. It was our home. It was. We have experienced it. The very nature of Atma is Ananda only. It's not something separate from us. But for reasons best known to us, we are unable to experience that Ananda because we are unable to raise our consciousness to that higher level. It's really becoming increasingly difficult for us to go back to such a home which belongs to us after being separated from it for eons of time. Eons of time. Yes, it is difficult, but we need to make a path for ourselves. We need to carve a path. We need to reach our destiny. This path is the inner path. It begins within and it ends within. The path begins within and the path ends within. Unfortunately, we spend a lot of time focusing and exploring the path outside, but the path inside has become a remote possibility for us as of now. For transformation to happen, we need to change from inside. It reminds me of a Sufi anecdote. You might have heard of Sufi saints. Sufi saints were the mystics who used to live a life which is a mystical life, a life which is weird probably to us. Our lives are weird for Sufis, and a Sufi's life is probably, it seems weird for us. But Sufis were the people who elevated their consciousness to such a level they could connect with universal consciousness wherever and whenever. True mystics. A Sufi saint by name Bayezid says this about himself. And he is saying something related to change. How change is difficult for us. Let me say what he said in his own words. He says, I was a revolutionary when I was young, and all I prayed to God was, Lord, give me the energy to change the world. So when he was young, he was so revolutionary person, he prayed God with a one-liner. What was a one-liner? Lord, give me the energy to change the whole world. And then he continues. As I approached middle age, I realized that half of my life is gone without changing a single soul. I have been unable to change even one single soul. So I changed my prayer to Lord. And I said, Lord, give me the grace to change all those who are in contact with me. At least my family members and friends on whom I have my own influence. And give me that much of grace which is enough to change my family members and my friends. And I shall be content with it. Look at the way his prayer moved from a higher level to lower level. He wanted to change the whole world, and he realized it's not possible. And he wished at least he could change his family members and his friends with whom he has a kind of intimate relationship. But then he says, now that I am an old man and my days are numbered, my only one prayer is, Lord, give me the grace to change myself. So he says, I became so old. I realized it is impossible to change others, not even my family members and not even my friends. At least I pray God, God give me the grace to change myself. And he says, if I were to pray this right from the start, right from the beginning, if I were to pray, God, give me the grace to change myself first, I should not have wasted my life. Human beings are naturally change resistant. If you ask anybody, you want to change, they say, yes, I want to change. But then when the opportunity comes to change, they are the one to resist the change. This is a first order conflict which is existing in human beings. It's a fundamental conflict. Jiddu Krishnamurti says, first order conflict. I want to change, but when opportunity arises, I cease to utilize the opportunity and I resist to change. Why this particular problem? Scientifically speaking, we have a very, very, very ancient component in our brain, what is called amygdala. And this amygdala is one particular small structure in the brain which is happy when you are performing your routine. Because amygdala feels secured when you are doing something which is a routine to which you are used to. Let's say you are traveling from your house to your office. Every day you take one particular course or a network of roads. And one day by mistake, you change the road at one particular juncture. Immediately amygdala responds. It's a new road. It's a road which is unknown to you. Get back. Go back. Get into your routine. Till then amygdala doesn't leave. It creates an insecurity in you. This is a scientific reason why human beings are so stuck with their ideas, so stuck with their notions, so stuck with their lifestyle, so stuck with everything. Even a minute change is sometimes so difficult. Change is difficult, but change is always good. Even if change brings something bad, the ultimate result of change is good only in long run. You have learned the required lesson, perhaps if the change did not work. That lesson, what you did learn, is really a precious lesson. Okay, so but what I like to emphasize here is we need to change ourselves first. And without changing ourselves, trying to change the external world is many times impossible. The easiest thing to do is change myself. And the most difficult thing to do is change the world and change the rest of the people. So I have a wonderful vachana from Basavanna or Basaveshwara to you. Dr. Jyoti is going to sing that vachana for you people.
ಲೋಕದ ಡೊಂಕನು ನೀವೇ ಕೆತ್ತಿದುವಿರಿ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ನಿಮ್ಮ ತನುವ ಸಂತೈಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಲೋಕದ ಡೊಂಕನು ನೀವೇ ಕೆತ್ತಿ ಕೆತ್ತಿದ್ದುವಿರಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ನಿಮ್ಮ ತನುವ ಸಂತೈಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನವ ಸಂತೈಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನವ ಸಂತೈಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ನೆರೆ ಮನೆಯ ಸುಖಕ್ಕೆ ಅಳುವವರ ಮೆಚ್ಚನು ನೆರೆ ಮನೆಯ ಸುಖಕ್ಕೆ ಅಳುವವರ ಮೆಚ್ಚನು ಕೂಡಲ ಸಂಗಮ ದೇವಾ ಲೋಕದ ಡೊಂಕನು ನೀವೇ ಕೆತ್ತಿದ್ದುವಿರಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ನಿಮ್ಮ ತನುವ ಸಂತೈಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನವ ಸಂತೈಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ನೆರೆ ಮನೆಯ ಸುಖಕ್ಕೆ ಅಳುವವರ ಮೆಚ್ಚನು ಕೂಡಲ ಸಂಗಮ ದೇವಾ ಲೋಕದ ಡೊಂಕನು ನೀವೇ ಕೆತ್ತಿದ್ದುವಿರಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ನಿಮ್ಮ ತನುವ ಸಂತೈಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿ
I think Dr. Nagesh accidentally left the meeting. He will join in again. Please be patient for a couple of minutes. Dr. Nagesh, you are on mute. Please unmute. Dr. Nagesh.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Am
you
I
are
audible?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was a bit logged out and I have logged in now. Sorry for the inconvenience. So after that song, what Lord Basaveshwara is saying is, first change yourself and then probably as you keep changing, that will have a direct influence on others. So changing ourselves is an inner work. Inner work. It is a work within oneself. This is what Sadguru Jaggi Vasudev says, inner engineering. Inner engineering really matters. But the problem is we are engaged in outer engineering to solve all the problems. And none of the problems are going to be completely solved by engaging in outer engineering. This inner engineering takes us back to our true home. It's a journey back home to the natural greatness and perfection that you had when you were born. Once again, you become like a child. This journey takes you back to the place from where you started your journey. Rather, it takes you back to a place you once knew very well, and on your way you forgot about it. In a way, you are going to track back to a place from where all this started. It's tracking back your forward journey by going backward and reaching the same place from where you started. In this process, what happens is you reveal your true self to yourself. In this process, I repeat, in this process, you reveal your true self to yourself. That's precisely the journey where the self meets the self, probably for the first time. And this precisely means you get to know yourself for the first time. This path, hence, is not a journey to some distant land. It is a journey which is within. Please understand a quote which I like to place, and this quote is from a famous English literature by name Eliot. A famous English literature. Is a great poet also. He says, we must not cease from exploration. At the end of all our exploring, we will arrive at a place where we began, and to know the place for the first time. Yes, I understand. Probably inner approach is the best approach, and spirituality is an inside-out approach. So we need to begin from inside. But all this should begin from where? All this, how do I begin? From where do I begin? How do I kickstart this whole process? Please don't bother. Please don't bother. It has already begun even without your knowledge. You are already on the path. But only thing is that become more conscious of yourself. When you become more aware and more conscious of yourself on the path, you can accelerate it. Going back home is a natural instinct. Nobody needs to teach you. God has given all that capital. God has kept all the capital investment in you. You have everything that is required to go back home. And nobody can prevent you or stop you because it is deeply ingrained in you. Each and every cell of your body knows that you need to go back home. I remember a wonderful anecdote here. I like to share with you people. It is an eye-opener for all of us. It is again a Sufi anecdote, which will wonderfully enlighten that the instinct to go back home is deeply ingrained in each and every cell of us. This is a Sufi anecdote, very insightful anecdote. A duck's egg was put under a hen. Hope you are following me. What did a duck do? A duck somehow placed its egg under a hen. The hen could not identify it is the egg of a duck. It thought the egg belongs to the same clutch. And the hen continued giving warmth to the eggs. When the egg hatched, the duckling came out along with several other eggs which also hatched, and this alone duckling walked with several chicks following the hen. The hen, the chicks, and the lone duckling used to walk around, stroll around, pecking for food. Neither the hen could recognize this is not a chick, this is a duckling. The duckling followed the natural instincts of going behind the mother and the hen, and along with the chicks and the duckling used to peck for food. After a few days, it so happened that the hen brought all its chicks close to the edge of the water pool. When the hen came close to the water pool, Suddenly, the duckling walked straight into the pool and started swimming to the surprise of the hen and other chicks. Poor hen could not understand what was happening. It stayed on land, clucking the land. And chicks could not understand what is happening. The duckling walked straight into the water and started swimming. It's a natural instinct. It's a natural instinct. And the hen and chicks were so surprised. Duckling knows swimming by instinct. What it needed was a sight of a pool. Duckling had deeply ingrained in it the lesson of swimming. It knew how to swim. It was there in every cell of duckling. What it needed was, it needed the sight of a pool. The moment it saw the pool, it walked straight into the pool, started swimming and disappeared. Similarly, going back home is deeply ingrained in every cell of us. What we need to go back home is probably a right person, maybe in the form of a guru, a right circumstance, a right situation. That's what we require. Otherwise, we are on the path. We are on the path. Till we get such a guru or such a situation which can teach us, or such a circumstance which can change us, we are also like ducklings, walking behind the hen, pecking the food, without even knowing that we are able to go back home, or without being able to know to swim. If such a guru, such a circumstance, such a situation doesn't arise, what am I supposed to do? This is what I keep having question for myself. If I don't get a guru, if I don't see a guru in my vicinity, if I don't get such a circumstance, what I am supposed to do? You are supposed to do something. If something doesn't happen, make it happen. How will you make it happen? You are a human being. You have the willpower to do what you really want to do and make it happen. There is an ancient maxim: when the disciple is ready, the master will appear. When the disciple is ready, the master will appear. Unless until as a disciple you are ready and you make it happen, the master will never appear. Remember that this breathtaking universe is a strikingly intelligent place, and it is also a friendly place. If you have that will, the whole world can conspire to help you out. It only wants us to evolve the planet, the planetary consciousness, the angels, the angelic powers, everyone, including all higher forces, wish that each human being evolve spiritually, evolve from inside. If you just manifest that willpower, the willpower is the Shiva inside you. If you awaken the Shiva inside you, the Ichha Shakti inside you, the whole universe conspires to help you out. Please remember another important point: whatever happens to us on this place and in this plane, whatever happens to us in this place, in this plane, happens for a reason, and there are no accidents in life. We have phenomenal power, but the problem is we have lost the connect to it. We have immense potentials. but we don't know the key how to open the potentials. It's just a matter of time. It happens within the wink of your eye. Why we are not able to connect to our immense potentials? It's primarily because of our fears. We suffer from a variety of fears which constrict our consciousness and do not allow us to realize our true potentials. When we don't realize our true potentials, how can we actually realize our true self? And fear is one very, very fundamental negative emotion which probably haunts almost everyone. Almost everyone. That's why in Bhagavad Gita, as Lord Krishna quotes around 26 virtues which are supposed to be cultivated by a human being, the very first virtue he says is Abhaya, Nirbhaya. Try to be fearless as far as possible. Be brave and bold. Where am I supposed to be brave and bold? You have to be first brave and bold to spot your weak areas. What are your weaknesses? Each one of us do have our own dark spots, our own blind spots. We have our own flaws. We have our own defects. We have our own deficits. Please observe these weaknesses, because this is precisely the place where the journey takes off. You have started the journey on the path, but taking off with a pace is possible only when you start focusing on your weaknesses and start healing them, so that eventually you would be finding your true selves. With the weaknesses, you cannot stand in front of the divine inside. The divine wants a pure being. Unless until we carry a pure aura, we are not allowed to enter into the sanctum sanctorum. The sanctum sanctorum is not outside in a physical temple. The sanctum sanctorum is very much within us. It is there in our heart. The Lord resides in the heart. Because every human body is a temple of God. So this is the only path to find peace and love. Unless and until we make a daring effort to catch ourselves with our weaknesses and heal those areas, it is impossible for us to even knock the door of Sanctum Sanctorum. No other path to go. But the issue is, we dread to seek our weaknesses. We dread to see our weaknesses. We always turn a blind eye to our weaknesses. Our obsession is to explore the flaws of. If we could only start observing our own words, our own feelings, our own thoughts, our own acts, we get ample opportunities to learn out of our mistakes. We are all perfect in our imperfections. Please don't say I don't have any imperfection. All of us do have imperfections. That is the reason we have been sent to this physical plane, to get rid of those imperfections and get back and stand in front of the Lord as a pure consciousness. We are all perfect in our imperfections. Our imperfections give us a central mission to us. That is precisely the place where your sadhana should begin. To make the journey back to the original and ideal selves that we were born as and reclaim the persons we truly are, we need to start from this area. It's an important juncture. Many teachings of great people definitely help us in going back, getting back home. Start looking at less than ideal traits which are there in us and accept them for what they are. All of us have flaws. Let us look into our flaws and accept them for who they are. Please accept. This is where
Please be with us. He's back. He's back.
Sorry, again, for some technical reasons, it logged out. Okay. I'm really sorry about the inconvenience caused. Am I audible now? Am I audible?
Yes, doctor.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. This is where people...
Yes, doctor.
Yeah. Thank you so much. See, this is the place where we have serious issues. We dare not see our imperfections. Even if we see, we deny owning them. A lot many of us don't like to see those imperfections. We have a fear. This is what I was talking about, fear. Fear to identify ourselves and our own defects. Because we can't tolerate those defects which are there in us. We want to pose ourselves as though we are very pure, we are very true, and we are free of flaws. For whatever reasons best known to us, we don't like to actually weakness. In case some of us, if we see, we deny owning them. We don't own them. And even if we own some of them, we do not want to act and overcome them. This is perhaps the most important phase. This is called as integrity gap. There is an integrity gap. We expect everyone in the world to behave the way we expect them to behave, but we are least bothered to know whether we are behaving the way the others are expecting us to behave. This is perhaps the most important phase and initial phase. This happens when will we start focusing on such particular sticky areas where we have several issues to solve and resolve? How do we go about? This happens when people either face crisis in their life or pass through very difficult circumstances, or fortunately come into contact with evolved people like gurus. There are only 3 situations in which we will start focusing inside, start introspecting, and start self-reflection. Number 1, when we face a serious life crisis or crisis, or when we pass through a very difficult circumstance, or fortunately when we come into contact with an evolved person, a saintly figure. Only in these 3 situations we are forced to introspect. The kind of pandemic which is going on in the world is an alarming bell for us. Perhaps the circumstance would make us introspect, engage and to change wherever we are supposed to change. If we don't own our imperfections, they really keep owning us. Life is something like that. The same laws which govern the nature are the laws which govern the human beings also. If you don't own something which belongs to you, that starts owning you. So if you don't own your imperfections start owning you. When they keep owning us, there is no growth in us. There is really no growth in us. So pray for some critical situations in life. A life without ups and downs, a life without serious setbacks is a useless life. Pray for some difficulties in life because they teach us. Life's greatest difficulties are life's greatest blessings. I repeat, life's greatest difficulties are life's greatest blessings, because it is exactly during such situations we end up doing some self-reflection. Otherwise, we do not. We do not introspect. Hence, we should not shun difficult times, because difficult times come to us in disguise to teach us some important life lessons which are precisely required at that point of time. We need some lessons to be taught at different junctures of our life. And specific situations arise in our life which try to teach us a lesson. And that lesson is very much required at that particular point of time in our life. Unfortunately, we don't even realize that it is a circumstance which has come to teach us a lesson, but we start blaming every other person in the world for such a difficult circumstance. Stop blaming others. Easier said than done. Stop blaming others and start introspecting and trying to change to whatever extent that you can change in the midst of a situation. Breakdowns always lead us to breakthroughs. This is a wonderful statement. Breakdowns always lead us to breakthroughs. So if you want to have a breakthrough in life, and if you want to go back home learning lessons, learning such lessons which are life lessons will take you back home. And this is possible only when you're ready to learn, when you convert a breakdown into a breakthrough. With this, Dr. Jyoti is going to sing a song for you. This is a vachana from Akka Mahadevi, where Akka Mahadevi is praying God to help her in the path of sadhana.
Kayada kattaleya kaleya, Kayada kattaleya kaleya, Madavamu Kayada kattaleya kaleya, Ennaya Mayaya Vamuraya Kayada kattaleya kaleya, Jivada janjadava maniso, Jivada janjadava maniso, Tande ಜೀವದ ಜಂಜಡವ ಮಾಡಿಸೋ ತಂದೆ ಚನ್ನ ಮಲ್ಲಿಕಾರ್ಜುನ ಎನಗೆ ಸುತ್ತಿದ ಮಾಯಾ ಪ್ರಪಂಚವ ಎನಗೆ ಸುತ್ತಿದ ಮಾಯಾ ಪ್ರಪಂಚವ ಅಯ್ಯ ಬಿಡಿಸೋ ನಿಮ್ಮಯ ಧರ್ಮ ಎನಗೆ ಸುತ್ತಿದ ಮಾಯಾ ಪ್ರಪಂಚವ ಅಯ್ಯ ಬಿಡಿಸೋ ನಿಮ್ಮಯ ಧರ್ಮ ಕಾಯದ ಕತ್ತಲೆಯ ಕಳೆಯ ಎನ್ನಯ್ಯ ಮಾಯೆಯ ಮದವಾ ಮುರಿಯಯ್ಯ ಕಾಯದ ಕತ್ತಲೆಯ ಕಳೆಯ ಕಾಯದ ಕತ್ತಲೆಯ ಕಳೆಯ
Such a wonderful vachana it is. It says Kayada Kattaleya Kalayaya, means please exterminate or eliminate my blind spots, my gray areas, dark zones, flaws, defects, deficits, drawbacks, whatever you want to call. There are several synonyms. So how is it possible? Self-reflection is the process through which you can overcome this kind of problems which are there. It's a process of going deep, looking at our darker side and to learn through. We need to make time to go deep into our negative traits and behaviors. But the issue is most people live on the outside. Most of us live superficial lives. We rarely get into the deeper layers of our living and deeper layers of our life. Mostly it is because of our fears. People run away from their fears instead of running towards them. It is said, run towards your fears instead of running away from the fears. Because the moment you start running towards the fear starts running away from you. We use this technique in child management. Most of the doctors engage this one technique called as flooding technique. What is flooding technique? If a child is scared of darkness, take the child repeatedly to darkness. Force the child to get exposed to darkness. It's a flooding technique. Whatever the child is scared of, expose the child to the same thing repeatedly. When you keep flooding the same stimulus, the child gets over that fear. Same thing with us. We have been harboring several kinds of fears, and instead of running towards the fears, we run away from the fears. And the fear is chasing us all the time. We have the fear to look into ourselves and spot our own problems. If we don't focus on our weaknesses and blind spots, who will actually do that work for us? If we don't do that now, when are we going to do? If we are not going to do now, when are we going to do? Where are we going to do? How are we going to do? So, we don't know how many tomorrows that we are going to live with. How many tomorrows are there in our store? We don't know. So it's better to do this as early as possible. Imagine if you had only one. Would that be living now? If God appears in front of you and says, I have given only one more year of life for you, do you live the same way you are living now? Definitely not. What will you do? You will definitely change the very outlook towards life. A lot of things change with respect to your talk, your work, your action, your feelings, your thoughts. Isn't it? This is called doing your own interior work. You engage in doing interior work because you know you don't have enough time now. It is our highest responsibility to do the interior work. At the end of the day, or at the end of any day, if you don't feel happy, and if you feel something is missing, that means to say you have not done the interior work. A lot majority of us at the end of the day feel somewhere something is unfulfilling, and somewhere we feel something is missing. Not only at the end of the day and whole days also. If such is the case, there's a lot of interior work which we are supposed to do. We have not done our interior work for several days and several years. And where to start the interior work? There's a wonderful insight given to this in a beautiful book of Robin Sharma, The Saint, the Surfer, and the CEO. It's one of the books which had a profound influence on me. And in this book, Robin Sharma says where to begin your interior work. He says begin connecting to your mortality. Connect to your death. Then you realize that life is short and very uncertain. We dread death also, and we keep the very thought of death away from us. We don't want to think about it. And we don't want to see other people dying also. We just can't bear the very sight of death and the very talk of death. At this juncture, I remember Srimati Rukmini Krishnamurti very much. She was my mentor. You know what were the topics she was fond of? Invariably, in several lectures, she used to talk about Marana, Marananantara Jivana, death and after death, reincarnation. They were favorite topics to her. I always used to feel why Madam picks up these topics so many times and repeats so many times. She had a very strong point, I realize. Unless and until you think about your death, you imagine your death, or you start perceiving your death, you will not understand that this life is short and it is very uncertain. Only when you realize that life is uncertain and life is very short, a bit of your remaining waking time fully alive, you realize life is precious because it's uncertain, it is short, any time I may die. So let me be fledged when I am living. Let me be alive completely, thinking of this forming death is push the thought of death away into it and get scared. Please understand death, realize that death is inevitable and it's going to be there for every living being on this world. Neither Krishna could live nor Rama could live. When such is the case, accept it. And when you accept it and when you think about it, you understand the value of the life which is left in front of you. Life is a fragile gift. I repeat, life is a fragile gift. Probably the pandemic taught us a lot that life is a fragile gift. There are so many homes where 20 years, 25 years, 30-year children are dead. The aged people have survived. And there are many homes where aged parents are lost and young children are left. I have visited a tree right opposite to my house. The tree is called Audumbara tree, where it is believed Dattatreya Swami resides. And these two women, elderly ladies, every day early morning they come in the place, they pray God, they worship God, and they do puja. One of those ladies, nearly, probably more than 90 years or close to 100 years, she developed COVID and she survived. No, absolutely no problem. But I saw a girl hardly 21 years old. She just passed away within 3 to 4 days. So what is this? What is the lesson for us? The lesson is life is a fragile gift. And it needs to be lived right now. Genuine success in life is an inside job. So we should start doing inside job. How are we going to do? There's one more song for you. And this song is written by Mr. R.K. Padmanabha. It is a Bhava Gite and it's very meaningful and insightful at this juncture. At this juncture of lecture.
Coronadatmana Bhavadayada Kadava Teresi Coronada Guruve Bhavadayada Kadava Teresi Coronada ಭಾವನೆ ಬಂದರು ಭಾವವಿಲ್ಲ ಭಾವನೆ ಬಂದರು ಭಾವವಿಲ್ಲ ಭಾವಗೀತ ಬಂದರು ಲಯಲಾಲಿತ್ಯವಿಲ್ಲ ಭಾವಗೀತ ಬಂದರು ಲಯಲಾಲಿತ್ಯವಿಲ್ಲ ಭಾನುಕೋಟಿ ತೇಜ ಭಾವಲಯ ಕರುಣಿಸಿ ಭಾನುಕೋಟಿ ತೇಜ ಭಾವಲಯ ಕರುಣಿಸಿ ಪಾವನ್ನ ಮಾಡೋ ಪರದ ಪರದೆಯ ಸರಿಸಿ ಪಾವನ್ನ ಮಾಡೋ ಪರದ ಪರದೆಯ ಸರಿಸಿ ಭಾವಲಯದ ಕದವ ತೆರೆಸಿ Coronadaatmana Satyasonadada Chilakava sarisi Satyasonadada Chilakava sarisi Ragataalagala Koteya bhedisi Satyasonadada ಚಿಲಕವ ಸರಿಸಿ ತಾಳಗಳ ಕೋಟೆಯ ಭೇದಿಸಿ ಕೃತಿ ಕೀರ್ತದ ಅಂಗಳ ತೋರಿಸಿ ಕೃತಿ ಕೀರ್ತನ ಅಂಗಳ ತೋರಿಸಿ ಗೇಯಗಾನ ಗರ್ಭ ಗುಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಗೇಯಗಾನ ಗರ್ಭ ಗುಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಅಗೋಚರ ನಾರ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನ ಅಗೋಚರ ನಿರಾಕಾರ ನಾರ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನ ಅನುಭವಕ್ಕೆ ತಾರೋ ಪದ್ಮನಾಭದಾಸಗೆ ಅನುಭವಕ್ಕೆ ತಾರೋ ಪದ್ಮನಾಭದಾಸಗೆ ಭಾವಾಲಯದ ಕದವ ತೆರೆಸಿ ತೋರೋ ನಾದಾತ್ಮನ ಗುರುವೇ ಭಾವಾಲಯದ ಕದವ ತೆರೆಸಿ ತೋರೋ ನಾದಾತ್ಮನ ತೋರೋ ನಾದಾತ್ಮನ.
Such a wonderful Bhavagite which shows or which tries to say how important it is to go beyond our emotions, to go beyond any perturbations. So with this, I'm coming to the terminal part of my lecture. I like to give a kind of recipe for doing this work. Although there are no universal formulas, what works and what doesn't work depends upon the nature of the individual person. I just like to place a kind of roadmap in front of you. The problem that we are facing is we have simply lost the connection to the source of the natural wisdom. So we have to get connected back to the natural wisdom which is universally present. So what do? First step, start self-reflection and introspection. Catch your flaws. That will create a scope for mid-course correction. Mid-course correction means right in the middle you are catching yourself and you are going to correct yourself. Somebody is greedy, somebody is stingy, somebody is lustful, somebody is gluttonous, somebody tells lies, somebody is a cheater, and somebody is a jealous. So whatever are these mean mindedness and emotions, they are the weaknesses for us. Work on those weaknesses. Accept, own them, accept. This is the first and the foremost step. The second step, begin connecting to your mortality. When you start connecting to your mortality, that means to say your own death, you start becoming more and more alive. Because you realize life is such a precious gift, although it's a fragile gift. So the time that is left has to be utilized properly. This is the second step. Start connecting to your mortality. Number 3, realize that everything that happens to you happens for a reason, and it's an opportunity to learn a lesson and heal a part of yourself, which requires healing. Nothing happens as accidents. Nothing is an accident. Everything is destined to happen. So when something happens, instead of blaming others, start looking for the lessons which are there hidden in it. This world is a growth school. It is a growth school. Every day you step into the world, you are stepping into a mega school where there are people, there are circumstances, there are instances, there are incidents which are going to teach you. So be ready to learn and become a school-going student. This is a third step. Fourth step, you are going to learn lessons here. No doubt. If you don't learn lessons, the same lessons are going to be taught repeatedly. It is not like you did not learn. Okay, it is all right. If you don't learn, you are not going to be left. You are going to be taught the same lesson n number of times. Situations, circumstances, instances, incidents arise in your life which are very, very similar, and time and again you are put to that particular problem. If somebody has a lot of fear, a lot of situations which are fearful arise one after the other. They arise basically to see whether you overcome your fears. You overcome your worst fears. Flooding technique. As I said, the laws that govern the whole nature govern even the human lives. So if something you don't learn, same kind of people, same kind of situations keep arising time and again till you learn. Some people spend their whole life dealing with very, very similar situations, very, very similar circumstances, and very similar people. Some people are very gullible, very gullible. They're not clever and they get cheated. If they don't learn how to actually overcome getting cheated by others, a lot of cheaters, they attract cheaters in their life. Time and again, the cheating people come to them, they cheat them and they go. There is no point in actually failing to learn a lesson and getting through the same problem many, many times. Okay. It is said to be a lesson when you learn it for the first time. If you don't learn for the first time and commit the same thing again, it is called as a mistake. So try to avoid mistakes. In life, it is such that some experiences are pleasant and some experiences are unpleasant. The best way to receive experiences in life, that is a fifth step. The best way to receive experiences in life is not to label them and just accept them. Don't label it's a good experience, it's a bad experience, it's a mediocre experience, it's a very great experience, it's an atrocious experience. Stop adjectives. Don't use adjectives. Don't label. The more you label, the more you get trapped. The more you get trapped with these particular situations. It is our limited thinking mind that paints something as good and something as bad. In reality, any occurrence in life, it is simply is. It has come to teach something. So all things that I don't like about in my life are great teachers. All things that I don't like in my life are great teachers. I don't like my mother-in-law. She's a great teacher to you. I don't like my sister. She's a great teacher to you. I don't like my brother. He's a great teacher to you. I don't like my boss. He's a great teacher to you. So please remember, what all you don't like in life, they are great teachers. Because you consider them as obstacles in your path. But obstacle is the path. Obstacle is the path. It is a Zen proverb. So become wise. What is it to be wise? Who is a wise person? A wise person sees everything as an opportunity and seek to learn from them. Anything is okay for him. He doesn't have any preferences, no predilections, no priorities, no expectations. This is the sixth step. What is the sixth step? The most difficult step. The step is you are in total acceptance and alignment with the natural laws of life. You don't seek anything, you don't shun anything. You have no priorities, preferences, expectations, and no predilections. Whatever comes in your way, with open hand you accept. That is where growth can happen. Without labeling, you are accepting. This is the sixth step. So this is what in Mankutimana Kagga, D.V. Gundappa said. Taka nondanu yogi nuka nondanu jagadi. Ekangi sahavasi Mankutimma. What a beautiful Kagga it is. Taka nondanu yogi nuka nondanu jagadi. He doesn't touch anything. He doesn't push anything. That means to say neither he seeks anything, nor he shuns anything. Whatever comes to him, with equipoise, he is ready to accept it. This is the sixth important step. So when you follow these 6 steps, probably you are moving on the path at a pace that is set by you. And you are going back home. Going back home means you are going back to Ananda from where you came out. And that is a real place to which you belong. And in fact, that is what you are. Your very nature is Ananda. And with this, I pray God that all of us try to work for, strive for Ananda, which is the true nature of our lives. And may God bless everyone with the true Ananda. Thank you very much for patient listening.